So breaking news, Israel just officially approved the hostage deal. They hadn't until, I think last night, approved it through the Security Cabinet of Israel. It was delayed because Hamas didn't want Israel to approve the sort of prisoners that they're releasing, the terrorists that they're releasing in exchange for the hostages. But whenever something like this happens, I want to turn to the preeminent voices. And Douglas Murray has been an incredible voice throughout this war. And I want to hear what he has to say about this hostage deal. So he recently wrote an article in the New York Post, and I want to just bring you the sort of crux of what he said. I might just go through the whole thing as well. Douglas Murray, a real ceasefire deal must ensure the destruction of Hamas. Just earlier today in the New York Post. Bring them home has been the slogan of the hostage families in Israel since October 7th, 2023. But when Hamas murdered 1,200 people, including 46 Americans, and when they took 254 people hostage, including 12 Americans, there should have been a different slogan. Give them back now. Since that day, so many opportunities have been missed. On October 8th, Joe Biden could have called up the governments in Qatar, Iran, and other rogue states and told them to get their friends in Hamas to hand over the hostages now, or else. With the leverage that the U.S. has in the Middle East, a hardball approach against the Qataris, Iranians, and Turks could have solved this 15 months ago. It is still a bittersweet moment. On the one hand, everyone except Hamas and their goons in the West must feel their hearts lift at the idea of their remaining hostages being released. These are men, women, and babies who did nothing wrong but have spent 15 months in the hell of Hamas captivity. On the other hand, the deal includes the release of Palestinian prisoners, including murderers. In the first round of releases, 9 ill and wounded hostages will be exchanged for 110 Palestinian prisoners who are serving life sentences. Just think about that. An Israeli baby could be released in exchange for a dozen grown murderers. This is very difficult, the Israeli public, to stomach, not least because the last time a similar deal was done, Israel released Yahya Sinwar, who went on to mastermind October 7th. What Douglas Murray is referring to here is the Gilad Shalit deal, where I believe 1,036 terrorists were released for one Gilad Shalit, and Yahya Sinwar was part of that group. Joe Biden has tried to make matters worse by claiming this deal is exactly the same as one he had put in place last May. What he misses is the work that the IDF has managed to do in the last 8 months. That includes the decimation of Hamas in Gaza. Had there been a ceasefire and exchange of hostages last May, the IDF would not have been able to proceed through Gaza, catch and kill Sinwar, and reduce Hamas to the rump it currently is. These months were not wasted. But the real test for the Trump team is what comes in round 2 of the deal. It apparently amazes some people Hamas are not a reliable negotiating partner. While the terror group may abide by this first round of the deal, the idea that they will stick with the next round seem remote. In their sick and twisted way, the leadership of Hamas know that having even the bodies of Israeli and American hostages is the only way that they can stay alive. What Israel has agreed to is only a cessation of hostilities, not the end of the war, which is as it should be. As I've said here before, there's no point in putting out 90% of a fire. You have to put out the whole thing. Think about how unbelievable that line is. Douglas Murray writes, as I've said here before, there is no point in putting out 90% of a fire. There is no point in putting out 90% of Hamas. You have to put out the whole thing. Otherwise, there can be another October 7th. So it is with Hamas. You have to destroy the whole thing and then make sure that they can never retake control of Gaza. Like the Nazis, Hamas and their ideology need to be destroyed utterly. They need to lose and to know that they've lost. To that end, the Israelis are rightly going to continue their presence at the Philadelphia Quarter, the strip of land where Egypt borders Gaza. If the IDF did not stay there, then from day one, the terrorist group and its allies across the region will start rearming Gaza via the Egyptian tunnels. The test now is how the incoming Trump administration can reassure the Israelis that despite the hideous parts of this deal, America will have its back in the next stages. There are several things Team Trump can do. One is to stop the holdup of certain weapons and weapon components that the Biden administration halted in order to pressure the Israelis to a deal. But the second and more important one is for the Trump administration to do what the Biden administration failed to, which is to put maximum pressure not on America's closest ally in the region, but on America's enemies. First among these is the revolutionary government in Iran. The single biggest aim of American policy in the region must be prevent the Ayatollahs from ever gaining nuclear weapons. Tehran is still pushing, but if Trump can reassure the Israelis that if they had acted to prevent Iran going nuclear, then they will have American backing that will help sweeten the deal. The second part is harder, which is to deal with the governments of Turkey and, even more importantly, Qatar. Trump's envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, this week told Fox News that God's work was being done around the negotiating table in Doha. According to him, work was being done by, among others, the Prime Minister of Qatar, Sheikh Mohammed. With all due respect to Witkoff and his delicate task, that is flat out wrong. If someone funds the people who have attacked your citizens and taken them hostage, then 15 months later helps to release some of them, that is not God's work. It is the work of the devil. At the very least, it is the work of the snake. Qatar's funding and hosting of Hamas and of the Muslim Brotherhood is something that in the years to come will look as terrible as Saudi Arabia's involvement in the ideology that spawned 9/11, as will the way in which Qatar has been allowed not just to fund America's enemies, but to subvert American institutions, at least American universities, through their money spigots. Unfortunately, Iran, Qatar, and Turkey have spent years outmaneuvering America and the West. If this deal is going to hold, it will need all of America's might to lean on the powers in the region which backed Hamas and undermined Israel. Trump's policy of peace through strength will stand or fall of that junction. We must hope it holds. So the key point is Douglas Murray says a real ceasefire deal must ensure the destruction of Hamas, and that a sort of temporary deal or putting out part of the fire is not the way to go. And he's 100% correct in that. Now, another preeminent voice, which is very interesting to hear from, is Ben Shapiro. And he gave a thorough breakdown of why Trump was able to succeed in this deal while Biden was not. Now, I want to make clear I am not supportive of this deal. What he means is that Trump was able to push through a deal where Biden was unable to. Ben Shapiro writes on Twitter, every hostage deal was going to suck because it was always going to be a trade of innocent kidnapping victims, including presumably the bodies of children, for mass murdering terrorists. The only question is whether this deal is worse or better than it could have been. The answer, because of Team Trump, is better. Here's why Team Trump was able to bring a hostage deal where Team Biden was not. Hamas goals in any hostage deal were a total and final ceasefire with Hamas in control, complete withdrawal of IDF from the Gaza Strip, return of all displaced to their homes, meaning free movement of terrorists all over the Strip, which is Hamas's actual goal, and reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, meaning flow of aid they could steal and use to recruit more Hamas members. Israel's goals were return of as many hostages as possible, no Hamas running Gaza, ability to eliminate future threats. The Biden team was willing to push for virtually all of Hamas's goals. Israel was obviously unwilling to accept that, and correctly so. Israel knew that any short-term Phase 1 ceasefire agreement would be deliberately misinterpreted by the Biden administration as a commitment to end the war and leave Hamas in control. Hamas knew that they could always hold out for a better deal and hope that Biden would ratchet up the pressure on Israel. They were all right, by the way. That's precisely what Biden is touting today, a supposed end to the war that actually isn't in the deal. The deal is not an end to the war, but that's not what Team Trump was saying. Team Trump made clear what Team Biden would not. This is the best deal Hamas was going to get. It only gets worse from here. Team Trump would not be pushing Israel to leave Hamas in control. Far from it. Both Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz made that crystal clear yesterday. Here's the thing. Hamas didn't get its goals here. Phase 1 does not include a final ceasefire, and I suspect there will never be a Phase 2, since Phase 2 has never materialized in literally any such agreement. Phase 1 does not include a withdrawal of Israel from Gaza, including the Philadelphia Axis. Phase 1 does not include free travel for Hamas through the Gaza Strip. Phase 1 includes increased aid, but not unfettered aid throughout the Strip to a reconstituted Hamas. So if a deal does indeed materialize, Team Trump gets credit for the two reasons. It made the ceasefire threat to Hamas that things would get worse from here, and it made the credible promise to Israel that if things go sideways, America will stand beside Israel. Biden couldn't and wouldn't do either of those things. To be honest, I disagree with Ben Shapiro here. I think it was a terrible deal overall. I don't think that there's any whitewashing it or trying to explain. I think that it probably is in America's interest, or at least in Trump's interest, short term, to do this deal. I definitely don't think that it's in Israel's interest, and that's why I think I blame Netanyahu to, basically going along with the Americans on this deal. It's a terrible deal, not only because it's, A, not fair in terms of the trade, but B, I do see there being a phase two because that's what always happens. I feel like the Americans are going to pressure Israel to end the war. I mean, we'll have to see. But again, like Douglas Murray says, you cannot put out 80% of a fire. What was the point if you were only going to put out 80% of the fire? You need to destroy the entire Hamas. Otherwise, another October 7th is around the corner. And that's a very depressing and sad thing to say. For more, subscribe to this channel. If you want to help us make more of these videos, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. That's buymeacoffee.com/JewishUncensored. Thank you and have a good one.